Be me Sydney, 32. Been married to Pamela for 5 years. We had a good thing going. Or at least, I thought we did. We weren't rich, but we had a nice little house in a quiet suburb. I have a decent job in logistics. She worked part-time in marketing. It was comfortable, predictable. Our life was built on routines. Waking up together, the smell of coffee, fighting over who gets the shower first, coming home, making dinner, watching some dumb show on TV. The little things that make a house a home. I thought we were a team. Then, about 8 months ago, things started to get weird. It was gradual at first. She started spending more and more time on her phone, scrolling through articles and forums. The conversations changed. Suddenly, everything was about self-care and personal growth and setting boundaries. I was supportive at first. Everyone needs to work on themselves, right? I encouraged her to take up a new hobby. Maybe we could do a class together. But her focus wasn't on activities. It was on concepts. She started talking a lot about energy, vibes, and things being toxic. One evening, I came home from a particularly long day at work. Brought her favorite Thai food as a little surprise. I walked into our bedroom, and she was standing there, holding one of my pillows. She didn't smile when she saw the food. She just had this very calm, very detached look on her face. It's the kind of look someone gives you when they've made a huge decision without you and are now just informing you of the verdict. She told me she needed to talk. My stomach dropped. Her whole speech was prepared, I could tell. It was full of phrases that sounded like they came straight from a pop psychology blog. She said she was on a journey of self-discovery, that our shared space was stifling her personal energy, that she needed a room of her own to decompress and process her own existence. I'm just standing there, holding a bag of Pad CU, trying to understand what she's saying. Is this a joke? I asked her what was wrong, what I had done. She shook her head. It wasn't about me, she explained. It was about her. It was about her need for independence within the marriage. And then she dropped the bomb. She had decided that for the foreseeable future, she would be sleeping in the master bedroom alone. My things, she pointed, were already packed into a neat little pile by the door. I was being relocated to the guest room. I was stunned. I couldn't even form a sentence at first. I asked if we could talk about it, maybe see a counselor. That was the wrong thing to say. According to her, my suggestion of therapy was an attempt to invalidate her feelings. My confusion was a form of resistance to her personal growth. She said that if I truly loved and respected her, I would honor her boundary without question. She weaponized the language of love and respect to get me to agree to my own banishment. What could I do? Argue? Yell? That would just prove her vague points about male aggression, or whatever she was reading about. So I just picked up my stuff. The pillow, the folded duvet, the small box with my bedside clock, and a book. I walked out of my own bedroom without another word. The door clicked shut behind me. And that was it. The guest room was a nice enough room, I guess. Clean, sterile, a bed, a dresser, a small window overlooking the neighbor's fence. It felt like a hotel room I would never check out of. The first few weeks were surreal. I kept thinking it was a phase, that she'd knock on my door one night and say this whole thing was ridiculous. That knock never came. Our lives became completely separate under the same roof. We were roommates. No, worse than roommates. I was a tenant who paid for everything, the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, the car payments, her credit card bills. All of it was still my responsibility. But I was no longer afforded the role of a husband. I lost all the privileges, but kept all the duties. I tried to talk to her a few times. I'd catch her in the kitchen in the morning and ask how she was doing, if she was feeling any better. She'd give me one-word answers while scrolling on her phone. I suggested a date night. She said she wasn't in the right headspace to be performing social rituals. Her online life seemed to become her real life. Her friends on these forums were her new support system. They were all encouraging each other to put themselves first. Apparently, putting yourself first meant treating your husband like a piece of furniture that dispenses money. She would talk on the phone with her friends, and I'd overhear snippets. Lots of talk about patriarchal expectations and the emotional labor of being in a relationship. From what I could gather, my very presence in the house was a source of great strain for her. The simple act of me asking what she wanted for dinner was an unbearable burden. Life became incredibly lonely. The silence in the house was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I started working late on purpose, spend more time at the gym, anything to avoid coming back to that quiet, empty house where my wife was a stranger down the hall. We still had to keep up appearances, of course. When we had to go to a family dinner or a friend's barbecue, she would act like everything was perfectly normal. She'd hold my hand in the car. She'd laugh at my jokes and tell people how great I was. It was a performance. The moment we got home, the mask would drop. She'd retreat to her room, and I'd go to mine. It was maddening. It felt like I was being gaslit 24/7. One time, we were at a get-together with some mutual friends. Pamela was holding court, talking about some article she read about modern relationships. She was going on about how men are never taught to handle their emotions, leading to toxic masculinity. Everyone was nodding along. I was just sitting there, sipping my drink, feeling like I was going to explode. Here she was, talking about emotional openness, while she had put up a 10-foot emotional wall between us for months. Her best friend, Maya, was there. Maya is a good person, down to earth, sensible. She and I had always gotten along well. Later in the evening, she caught me alone by the drinks table. She asked me if everything was okay. She said I seemed quiet lately. I just gave her the standard line. Yeah, just tired from work. I couldn't tell her the truth. It was too humiliating. My wife kicked me out of our bed because her horoscope told her to find her inner goddess. Yeah, right. But Maya looked at me with this concerned expression. She wasn't buying it, but she was polite enough not to push. It was the first time in months anyone had looked at me with what felt like genuine empathy. That small moment of kindness almost broke me. The situation continued to degrade. Pamela started making small, unilateral decisions about the house. She redecorated the living room. The comfortable old couch we bought together was replaced by some stylish, uncomfortable thing she saw online. My favorite armchair disappeared. When I asked, she said it disrupted the flow of the room. My things were slowly being erased. I felt like I was becoming a ghost in my own life. I was just there to pay for the stage on which she was performing her one-woman show of self-discovery. I stopped trying to talk to her. I stopped suggesting things. I just retreated into myself. Work, gym, my room. That was my life. I started thinking about leaving, but the thought was complicated. The house, the finances, the 5 years we had invested. Was I really going to throw it all away because of this? What if it really was just a phase? I was stuck. The months just bled into one another. Summer turned to fall. I think we were about 6 months into this new arrangement. It had become the new normal, the cold, silent truce of our cohabitation. Then came the night of the storm. It was a weekday, late, sometime after midnight. The rain was coming down in sheets, wind howling like crazy. I was asleep in the guest room when I was woken up by a sound I couldn't place, a sort of dull, rhythmic banging. I laid there for a minute, trying to figure out if I was dreaming. Then I heard a loud crash from downstairs. I jumped out of bed and ran out of the room. The hallway was dark, but I could hear it clearly now. The sound of running water, a lot of it. I flicked on the hall light and my blood ran cold. Water was pouring down from the ceiling light fixture in the main hallway. A steady, heavy stream, like a faucet, had been turned on full blast. A huge, dark stain was spreading across the ceiling. I sprinted upstairs to the main bathroom, the one directly above the hall. I threw open the door. It was a disaster. A pipe under the sink had burst. Water was spraying everywhere, hitting the opposite wall, flooding the floor. The whole room was already under an inch of water. My first instinct was to find the shut-off valve. My second was to wake up Pamela. Her room, our old bedroom, was right next to the bathroom. I ran over and started pounding on the door. "Pamela, wake up! There's a flood!" It took a few seconds for her to open it. She looked annoyed, sleepy. "What is it, Sydney? You know this is my space." Then she saw the water seeping out from under the bathroom door. Her eyes went wide. She saw the waterfall coming down from the ceiling downstairs. I expected panic, teamwork, a moment where our stupid Cold War would be forgotten in the face of a real crisis. I was a fool. Her reaction was something else entirely. She looked at the mess, the ruined ceiling, the flooding bathroom. Then she looked at me. There was no we in her eyes. There was no us. There was only her. She walked past me, into her room, and grabbed her car keys and her purse. I was trying to find towels, anything to stop the flow. "What are you doing?" I asked, completely bewildered. She turned to me, already halfway out the door of her room. Her expression wasn't scared or worried. It was irritated. Like this whole emergency was a personal inconvenience designed to annoy her. "I can't deal with this," she announced. "This is too much negative energy. I'm going to my mom's house." I just stared at her. The ceiling was literally collapsing downstairs. "You're leaving?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Right now?" She let out an exasperated sigh, as if I was being deliberately stupid. "Obviously, Sydney. The house is a mess. I'm not staying here." She started walking towards the main stairs, carefully avoiding the puddles. "You're the man," she said over her shoulder. "You handle it." That phrase. After months of her railing against traditional gender roles, after months of her treating me like I was a relic of the patriarchy, that's what she threw at me. "You're the man. You handle it." The hypocrisy was so staggering it almost made me laugh. She didn't even say goodbye, didn't ask if I had a place to go, didn't offer a single word of support. I heard the front door open and close. I heard her car start up and drive away into the storm. And then it was just me, standing there in the middle of the night, in a house that was actively falling apart around me, soaked, freezing, and completely, utterly alone. My wife had just abandoned me in a sinking ship. I stood there for a full minute, listening to the sound of the pouring water and the receding sound of her car. The reality of the situation crashed down on me harder than the ceiling plaster. My marriage wasn't just in the guest room. It was dead. It had been dead for months, and I was the fool who kept trying to perform CPR on a corpse. Her leaving like that, it wasn't a phase. It was a choice. She had chosen herself, her comfort, her convenience, over me, over our home, over everything we had built. A strange sense of calm washed over me. The confusion and hurt were replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I finally saw her for who she was, not who I wanted her to be. First things first, I had to stop the water. I waded into the dark, flooded basement, found the main water shut-off, and cranked it until the sound of spraying water upstairs finally stopped. The house was eerily quiet again, save for the steady drip, drip, drip from the ruined ceiling. I went back upstairs and looked at the damage. It was bad. The bathroom floor was wrecked. The hallway ceiling downstairs was a complete loss. There was no way I could stay here tonight. I grabbed my phone to call a hotel. I tried 3 different places, all booked solid. Some big medical conference was in town, the front desk guy told me. Not a room to be had. Great. So I'm homeless for the night. I sat down on the one dry step on the staircase, my head in my hands. My parents live 3 states away. My brother is on the other side of the country. I thought about my friends, but it was nearly 2 a.m. Who do you call at 2 a.m. for a problem like this? Then I thought of Maya. I hesitated. It felt wrong to call my wife's best friend, but I was out of options. I figured the worst she could do was not answer. I found her number and hit dial, my heart pounding. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Sydney? Is everything okay?" In that moment, just hearing a friendly voice, a voice that sounded concerned, it almost broke me. I explained the situation as quickly and calmly as I could. The burst pipe, the flood, Pamela leaving. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. It wasn't sleepy anymore. It was sharp and full of disbelief. "She just left? She left you there to deal with it all alone?" "Yeah," I said, the single word feeling heavy and pathetic. "I don't even know what to say to that," Maya said. "That's unbelievable." Another pause. "Look, where are you right now?" I told her I was still at the house. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, her tone firm. "You can't stay there. I have a spare bedroom. It's not much, but it's warm and dry. Get over here right now." I tried to protest, to say it was too much of an imposition. She cut me off. "Sydney, it is not an imposition. It's what friends do. Now stop arguing and get in your car. I'll leave the porch light on for you." And she hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, stunned. It was the most decisive, unselfish act of kindness I had experienced in half a year. I grabbed my wallet, my keys, and a change of clothes from the guest room. As I walked out the front door, I didn't even look back. The house wasn't my home anymore. It was just a water-damaged building, a monument to a failed marriage. The drive to Maya's apartment was short, maybe 15 minutes, but it felt like a journey to another planet. The rain was still hammering down, the wipers fighting a losing battle. I was just on autopilot. My mind was empty. I pulled up to her building. The porch light was on, just like she said it would be. I got out of the car, feeling the cold rain soak through my jacket instantly. By the time I reached her door, I was dripping and shivering. She opened it before I could even knock. She didn't say anything dramatic. No, "Oh, you poor thing." She just looked at me, took in my soaked clothes and exhausted face, and stepped aside. "Come in? You're soaked." Her apartment was warm and cozy. It smelled like cinnamon. It felt like a sanctuary. She handed me a towel. "The guest bathroom is just down the hall. There are some clean towels in there. Get yourself dried off." I did as I was told. I felt like a robot taking commands. When I came out, wearing the dry change of clothes I'd grabbed, she was in the kitchen. She had a steaming mug in her hands. "Tea," she said. "Figured you could use it." We sat at her small kitchen table. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, just feeling the heat seep into my skin. We sat in silence for a minute. It wasn't an awkward silence like the ones at home. It was comfortable. Finally, she spoke, her voice gentle. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but I'm here to listen if you do." And just like that, the dam broke. It all came out. I didn't even know where to start, but the words just started flowing. I told her everything. Not just about the flood. I told her about the guest room. I told her about the last 6 months of being treated like an unwanted tenant in my own home. I told her about the separate lives, the silence, the condescending pop psychology lectures. I told her about the way she'd pretend we were a happy couple in public, only to freeze me out the second we were alone. I told her how she talked about emotional labor while I was carrying the entire financial and emotional weight of our lives. I felt pathetic telling it all. I was laying bare the complete failure of my marriage, my own powerlessness. I expected her to get defensive on Pamela's behalf. She was her best friend, after all. I expected her to say I was exaggerating, or that I must have done something to provoke it. She did none of those things. She just listened. Her expression shifted from concern to disbelief, and then to a quiet, simmering anger. Not anger at me, anger for me. When I finally ran out of words, my voice hoarse, I just sat there, staring into my empty mug. I felt hollowed out. Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she shook her head slowly. "Sydney, I had no idea," she said, her voice soft. "She never said a word about any of this. Whenever she mentioned you, it was always, I don't know, vague complaints. She made it sound like you were just emotionally distant." She looked me right in the eye. "What she's been doing to you, that's not okay. It's cruel. You didn't deserve any of that. To be heard, to be believed." After 6 months of my reality being denied and dismissed, those simple words felt like a lifeline. A huge weight I didn't even realize I was carrying just lifted. We talked for a little while longer. Not about Pamela, but about other things. Work, movies, stupid stuff. It was the first normal conversation I'd had in forever. She showed me to the spare room. It was simple, with a comfortable-looking bed and a stack of books on the nightstand. "Get some sleep," she said. "We can figure out the rest tomorrow." I fell asleep the second my head hit the pillow. For the first time in months, I didn't dream of empty hallways or closed doors. I woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee. I felt rested, truly rested. I walked out into the living room, and Maya was already dressed for work. She'd left a fresh pot of coffee and a note on the counter. "Help yourself to anything. My number's on the fridge if you need me. Don't worry about a thing." I spent that day on the phone. Plumbers, insurance adjusters, a water damage restoration company. It was a logistical nightmare. The restoration guy told me the house would be uninhabitable for at least a week, probably more. Major repairs were needed. Throughout the day, Maya would text me. "How's it going? Need me to pick anything up on my way home?" It was such a small thing, but it felt huge. Someone was actually thinking of me as a partner in a crisis, not a tool to fix a problem. My phone rang late in the afternoon. It was Pamela. I braced myself for an argument, an apology, something emotional. I got none of that. Her tone was all business. "So, what's the status? Have you fixed it yet?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Where did you sleep?" Just, "Is my comfortable life ready to be resumed?" I kept my voice flat and neutral. I gave her the rundown. Plumbers called, insurance claim filed, restoration company scheduled. I told her the house would be unlivable for a while. "A week?" she shrieked. "Where am I supposed to stay for a week? My mom's couch is killing my back." The sheer, breathtaking selfishness of it all was almost impressive. "I don't know, Pamela," I said. "That sounds like a you problem. You're the one who is so good at handling things on your own." There was a stunned silence. I had never spoken to her like that before. "What is that supposed to mean?" she snapped. "It means I'm busy," I said, and I hung up. It felt good. That evening, when Maya got home, I had made dinner. Just a simple pasta dish, but it felt important to do something. We ate and talked. It was easy, comfortable. I told her about Pamela's call, and she just rolled her eyes. "Sounds about right," she muttered. I stayed at Maya's for 2 more days. During that time, I went back to the house to meet with the insurance adjuster. Walking through the damaged rooms, seeing our life's belongings in disarray, it didn't feel sad. It felt like looking at a stranger's house. I realized I had no desire to move back in, not with her. The decision formed in my mind, clean and simple. It was over. I didn't want to fix the house. I wanted to escape it. I told Maya my decision that night. I told her I was going to pack my essential things and find my own place. She just nodded, her expression supportive. "Good," she said. You need a fresh start. So the next day, a Saturday, I rented a small moving van. It was time to pull the plug. I drove to the house. It was quiet and smelled of damp plaster. I started in the guest room, my prison cell, packing my clothes, my books. It didn't take long. I hadn't been allowed to have much of a presence in the house anyway. I was in the middle of taking down a picture from the wall in the study when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Pamela. She walked in the front door like she owned the world. She was carrying a shopping bag and talking on her phone. She stopped dead when she saw me. Then her eyes fell on the boxes, stacked in the hallway. She ended her call. "What is all this?" she asked, her voice laced with annoyance. "Are you moving stuff for the repairs? They shouldn't need you to do that." She genuinely thought I was doing manual labor for her convenience. I took a slow breath. "I'm not moving things for the repairs, Pamela," I said, my voice steady. "I'm moving out." She blinked. The idea didn't seem to compute. Then she laughed, a short, sharp, disbelieving sound. "Don't be so dramatic, Sydney. Are you still mad about the other night? I was stressed. You can't expect me to be perfect when my house is being destroyed." My house, not our house. "This has nothing to do with the other night," I said, turning back to the box I was packing. "That was just the final confirmation." "Confirmation of what?" she demanded, her voice getting sharper. "That this is over," I said simply. "Our marriage. It's done." She was silent for a moment. I could feel her staring at the back of my head. I think she was actually trying to process the idea that I, the quiet, compliant husband, was making a decision without her permission. "Where have you even been staying?" she asked, her tone suspicious. "I stayed with Maya," I said, not turning around. I placed a few more books in the box. The name hung in the air for a second. Then, the explosion. "Maya!" she screamed. The sound echoed in the empty house. "You stayed with my best friend. What did you do, Sydney? Did you sleep with her? Did you cheat on me?" The hypocrisy was a physical force. It was so intense, I almost felt a shockwave. I slowly turned around to face her. Her face was red, twisted in a mask of righteous fury. The victim. And I felt nothing. The part of me that would have been intimidated, that would have tried to placate her, was gone. I looked her dead in the eye. My voice was calm, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Cheat on you?" I asked, my tone flat. "That's an interesting choice of words." I took a step towards her. For the first time, she looked a little uncertain. "Let's be very clear about something, Pamela. You ended this marriage 6 months ago. You ended it when you threw me out of our bed and into the guest room." I took another step. "You ended it every single day you treated me with silence and contempt. You ended it every time you dismissed my feelings while preaching about your own. You ended it when you abandoned me in a flooding house in the middle of the night to save yourself." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "Our marriage," I said, my voice dropping lower, "died in this house. It died of neglect. And you were the one who starved it to death." I was standing right in front of her now. So yes, I went to Maya's, and yes, we spent the night together. And you know what she gave me? A listening ear, a cup of tea, basic human decency. Things a wife is supposed to give her husband. Things you haven't shown me in half a year. "So don't you dare," I finished, my voice like ice, "stand here in the wreckage you created and call me the traitor." I held her gaze for a long moment. All the fire went out of her. Her face crumpled. She had nothing. No defense, no argument. Because it was the truth, and we both knew it. I turned my back on her, picked up a box, and walked out the front door to the moving van. I did not look back. I loaded the last of my things and got in the driver's seat. As I pulled out of the driveway, I saw her standing in the doorway, a solitary figure in a broken house. She got exactly what she wanted, A whole house to herself. All the personal space in the world. The aftermath was quiet. I filed for divorce the next week. Pamela apparently tried to spin the story to her friends. The tale of the cruel, cheating husband and the treacherous best friend. It didn't work. Maya had already told a few key people the truth, the full story. The story of the guest room and the flood. The narrative didn't stick. People stopped answering Pamela's calls. She was left with the fallout. A massive repair bill for a house that was now half empty, and a social circle that had evaporated. She was isolated, alone with her empowerment. Me? I got a small apartment across town. It's not much, but it's mine. It's peaceful. Maya and I are taking things slow. We're not jumping into anything. We're just two people who found a connection in the middle of a disaster. We have dinner sometimes. We talk. We laugh. It feels real. It feels respectful. Last week, we were sitting at a coffee shop, and she just looked at me and smiled. And I smiled back. For the first time in a very long time, I feel like I can breathe again. I got my own space too, except mine is called freedom